Hey everyone, good evening. My name is Heng Sure. Today is Friday, the 6th of June, D-Day. Oh my goodness. This is Berkeley, California, the broadcast studios of the Berkeley Buddhist Monastery, which is a fancy name for my library desk. And I'm here to investigate with you the story tonight, the continuing saga of Master Empty Cloud and his picture biography, as prepared by our teacher, Venerable Master Xuyun Lecture. So if you're here for that, you're in the right place. Don't move a dad burned inch, as they used to say. So at the moment, we have Vera down in Sao Paulo, Brazil, who's going to request Dharma for us. So let me ring the bell 3 times. And if you'd like to join me, you can make 3 half bows from wherever you're sitting, and then we'll have Vera request Dharma. All right? You ready to begin? Here we go. First bow. Second bow. And third bow. Okay, Vera, if you'd like to request Dharma, please go ahead.
恭敬大德圣经，为此法会集结众生，经正妙法轮教导我们。如何了生脱悉离苦得乐，速证无生。Will the Sangha with great virtue out of compassion for the sake of this assembly and all living beings, please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to leave suffering and attain bliss and end birth and death and quickly realize non-birth.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Namo sadanto suchedoye alahadi sammyao samputoshe.
Namo sadanto suchedoye alahadi samya samputoshe.
无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered even in billions of eons, but now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. All right, Vera, thank you so much for the Dharma request. Happy to oblige. Now, if there are people who would like to hear a Vietnamese translation, please go to the chat box. You will find a link to the Vietnamese translation of my talk. And let's see. 声音现在大一点. Let's see here. 声音最大翻译声音. Okay, good, good. We're working on it here. Here we go. So I hope my voice is loud enough, and we'll get our translator's voice just right. Now, 我还要说，如果各位想听一种流利的普通话的翻译，我们有办法。那个控制版的右下角说 interpretation，看到那里就有中文 你们可以听，欢迎感恩我们的这个义工很发心，就帮我所讲的英语翻译流利的普通话。Okay, we have a Chinese translation available to you. And, you English speakers who are, like me, still studying your Chinese, you can also listen in. There it says interpretation down in the right-hand corner. You'll find Chinese right there, and that's fluent Mandarin coming to you at because of the efforts of a kind-hearted volunteer who is giving his time and effort to make this lecture go further. And in the chat box, you can also find a Vietnamese translation available to you. Click on the link and you can hear Vietnamese translation of my English. How about that? I think, boy, what a gift to me to be able to have my words go out in different languages. Amazing. All right, let's see here. We would like to acknowledge the Chochechno Ohlone people, practice spiritual connections to the earth and all creation here, that is to say, San Francisco Bay region, their ancestral land for tens of thousands of years. Today we acknowledge them as traditional custodians and original storytellers of these lands. We offer our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and to all First Nations people whose sovereignty was never ceded. Now, this is not a small thing, because over across the bay, on the far side of the bay, right up against where the Golden Gate Bridge was built later, was the Muwekma Ohlone people, a different tribe of the Ohlones, and the National Register of Tribes had overlooked them, and so their descendants were not getting any of the benefits that the Bureau of Land Management, which handles Native affairs, was making available. Only after the Interfaith Center at the Presidio did some research to do an acknowledgement of who was there first, did they discover that it was the Muwekma Ohlone who were there first. And sure enough, their ancestors were still right there, and they got added to the register. So interfaith and this acknowledgement of country is very significant. 这种说法很重要哈。那个旧金山的最西部靠着大海，就是金门大桥那里有一个种族，就是Ohlone 的另外一些人，他们本来没有记载全国的这个印第安族的这个记录结果呢受不到国家的这些这个好处哈。然后呢，我们 interfaith 就这个 acknowledgement 承认他们存在，研究就知道了，本来有这些人，哇，原来他们的后代，他们的下一代还在So 就是 interfaith 重要。Just I wanted to help translate that because I don't know if I'm speaking clearly. 就说我们恭敬地承认，就Chechen Ohlone人，他们是我们寺院所在地的传统叙事者和守护人，这是另外一种 Ohlone 族的小部分的人。我们向过去、现在和未来的长者们致敬，并且向所有从来没有放弃主权的第一民族的原住民也致敬。Yeah. When the people who come later write the history, the people who originally were there might just disappear. Oops. The bell sound wide resounds throughout 100 million worlds. The Buddha's lie is heard and spread all throughout the triple world. The wondrous sounds that everywhere fill the Dharma realm with peace. May those who hear it gain the strength to follow in faith the Buddha's path. 众生传3000劫内佛法让万亿国中共训起法界和平利益报贪恼厚德 There we are. All right. Here we go. There it is. Here's our teacher, Master Empty Cloud. He, in this picture, I believe he is 118, if I'm not mistaken. Just remarkable. And we've got amazing story tonight. For the storytellers among us tonight, this is a very special episode in our ongoing series because I knew that some of the details had to be left out of Master Hua's retelling simply because of issues of space and the format of the book. You can't tell every detail. So I checked the Nianpu, Master Empty Cloud's own autobiography. Sure enough, there were stories. Not only were some details because of space limitations left out, he himself added 3 extra stories, appendices, to his own life story. So we're going to look at that tonight. And here we go. The Chinese goes like this. The title is Reciting Sutras and Bestowing Food Upon a Monk. 为和尚念经施食. 1904, he's 65 years old. 往腾冲住香会馆行单未谢行单未谢 there we go 有服孝者数人叩礼云请大师念经公答非应付经商孝子云为你们和尚念经官人曰大师要去来者为吴太史曾村太史乃善人岭中为卫僧有高僧来度 Okay, every word counts. The master left for Tengchong, where he stayed in the Hunan Province Association Hall. Before he could put down his bag, however, several mourners bowed and said, "We respectfully request the Venerable Master recite sutras for the deceased." The master told them that he was not a monk who practiced reciting sutras upon request for the deceased. A mourner then said, "Surely you can recite sutras for a fellow monk." A man from the association said, "Venerable Master, you ought to go with them. These people are the grandsons of the imperial historian Wu, who was a righteous man. Just before his death, he revealed that he had been a member of the Sangha during a previous life, and that an eminent monk would soon arrive to take him across." Mysteries here. Some mysteries. Let's look at the Chinese first of all. Wang Tangchong. So, Master Empty Cloud, 65, he's on a pilgrimage, and he is traveling down in Yunnan. And you'll recall that he is out asking for support, drumming up support for his special project, which is he wants to build a monastery that can receive traveling monks, because he himself experienced severe, not quite life-threatening, but severe discomfort on a trip, on his pilgrimage, when he showed up at a monastery and was refused entrance and discovered that the Sangha in this part of Yunnan was corrupt, and they had fallen into a practice of passing on leadership of monasteries from father to son, instead of keeping it for the 10 directions Sangha, whose rules, whose procedures went back all the way to the Buddha. And this hurt his heart. How can monasteries in China have decayed to this level? I'm going to do something about it. So he determined he was going to build a place on his own. Well, he was refused because the local powers that be did not want a whistleblower, did not want to be told they needed to reform. So Master Empty Cloud, being a courageous, fearless reformer, decided that he was going to do it anyway. Then he went to Jizushan, to Chickenfoot Mountain, where Maitreya Bodhisattva is said to be waiting inside the mountain. And a bell rang and a wooden fish sounded, which were predicted miracles that came with a legend that said, when a person of rare virtue arrives, these sounds will be heard. Oh my goodness. So he took that presence, that miracle, that is to say, an event without an obvious cause, as a sign that he was on the right track. So he found, with the help of a knowledgeable local layman, that there was, in fact, a monastery available for him up in the mountains in a rugged place. And he went up, and there it was, a ruined temple called Bo Yu Si. And he received it, said, well, this will do, but discovered, guess what, there's a rock, huge rock in the wrong place based on feng shui knowledge, based on his knowledge of the wind and the water, the feng and the shui, which is to say geomancy, that's the name. In Chinese also called Di Li. So what did he do? He determined to move the rock so that the temple could flourish. And he asked the general for help. The general found 100 workers who put their backs to it and used their technology, probably pry bars and wooden boards, couldn't move the rock. They gave up. 100 workmen went back down the mountain. Master Empty Cloud says, we have a method. Called in 12 monks. And together they pushed just at the right place. They recited mantras, and the rock moved. And the feng shui changed. So he is now, that's our backstory. So he is now heading to Tangchong, this place. And it's a city, and he has stopped at the Xiang Hui Guan. Xiang is a old medieval Chinese poetic name for Hunan, which is where his father was from. It's where he was born. So he's at the Hunan. He shows up, and if you're a Hunanese and you come to the Hunan Huiguan, they have dormitories. So he's probably going to claim a room there and get some food that he can. They'll make offerings to the monk, and before he can before he can get a key to the room,有服孝者数人, a number of people who are wearing mourning clothes. Xiao, here at filial, it's people who, in their extremity of grief, are probably wearing white robes. Let's see, take a look. Here's the picture. They're down there on their knees in front of what is this? This is a funeral altar. Somebody has died. Somebody in their family. They've got the pai wei, they've got a candle, they've got incense and offerings. And they come up to him, to Master Empty Cloud, and they say, Venerable Sir, we would like you to do a funeral for our elder, for our deceased relative. 念经. Now, this needs a bit of interpreting. So, 念经 at at the time of death became in China, and it's still the case in Taiwan, in Singapore, Malaysia, Japan, particularly in Japan, in Korea, various places, Malaysia. When someone dies, people think, call the monks. And the monks come and they recite the Amitabha Sutra or the Heart Sutra and sometimes repentances and get paid for their services. This is a major source of income for the Sangha in certain places. Our teacher, Master Xuyun, made it very important that we new generation here of Sangha members did not pick up the habit of going out to receive money for reciting. Why? Because we're not compassionate? No, that's not why. We will do Buddhist ceremonies for people of our community who pass away. But the custom grew abused in China, and people, there was a cliche, a stereotype, an epithet for monks and nuns who did this exclusively. They were called Ganjing Chan, people who made their living through reciting sutras and repentances. It got to be a hustle. So what Master Hua set up was, if lay people would like to serve the community by going out and reciting the Buddha's name when someone dies, called Zhu Nian Tuan, reciters who recite simply because they're good heart, because they want to propagate the Pure Land Dharma, that's a wonderful thing to do. And there's tremendous merit in doing that. You go recite by the bedside of somebody who's about to die or has died or in the hospital. But when there is a funeral ceremony, come into the monastery and let the monks chant at that point. If you'd like to make an offering of food, that's up to you. But having the monks go out to funeral homes, to mortuaries, to columbariums, etc., can become something that you do all day long, because there's never any shortage of people passing away. So Master Hua said, we're not going to start our Sangha on the path of hustling sutras and repentances for money. Let people come into the monastery if they choose. At the time, they talk to the monks and nuns, and it will be people from the community. Now, at first, people said, whoa, that's pretty uncompassionate. And yet, the truth of the matter is, we get phone calls here at the monastery, probably a couple times, 3 times a month. Somebody goes, oh, will you come and recite for my grandpa, for my grandmother, for my uncle? And then they say, how much do you charge? And we say, sorry, we limit our services to members of our community, because why? Sincerity is what counts. And if you think you're going to go hire monks you don't know, there's not a lot of heart there. It's a business. And so this is not something that we do. If you not that we don't want to help people who pass away, but often this is one of those moments where you really get to see people's filiality or lack of it. Often children move away from parents, sometimes for very good reasons, and when the parents die, suddenly there's remorse, suddenly there's grief, suddenly there's feelings of, I should have been closer to them. We'll pay the monks and heal our conscience, feel like we're doing good by kind of putting salve on the wound with money. And of course, that's not something we want to honor. So it's iffy that people are very vulnerable at the time of death. And if you're an unscrupulous monk or nun, you can really take advantage of people at that time. So none of those abuses of the reality of people passing away is something we want to celebrate. There are people who will, but just if someone wants to come into the monastery, light incense and bow, recite a sutra in front of their ancestors' paiwei, that's perfect. That's sincerity. That actually helps the one who passed away, and it helps the living as well. So, Master Empty Cloud, with all that in mind, says, Gong Da, Fei Ying Fu Nian Seng. I am not I am not a monk who recites sutras. He, too, perhaps Master Hua was imitating Master Empty Cloud by saying, no, sorry. There are monks who do nothing but that. Go find them if you like. He refused. Xuyun, it's not over. The mourners said to him, 为你们和尚念经. This is reciting for one of your own Sangha members. What? No monk that I know died here out here in Tangchong. So, Guanren, what happens? Someone from the Hunan province association says, 师父, you should go. He says, 大师要去, you should go to 来者为无太师曾村. These people who ask you to go are the descendants of a writer, a historian, a public servant named Elder Wu. Historian Wu, 太师乃善人. He was a shan ren. Now, a shan ren is a designation in Shifu's Dao De Hui, the way, the society of the Tao and its virtues in Manchuria. They had Wang Shan Ren, who was good man Wang Chongyi, Wang, I've forgotten his name. Maybe somebody remembers Wang Shanren, the name. He was a remarkable illiterate man who helped hundreds and hundreds of people simply by using the goodness of his heart, his virtue. He could heal illness. He could solve crimes. Remarkable man who did all kinds of good in his local village simply by being virtuous and true, straight, not crooked in any way. And he was such a bright mirror that many things, Wang Fengyi, right? There it is, Wang Fengyi, Wang Fengyi, 对了，陈君可能Wang Fengyi, okay. Good man Wang Shanren. So that's who he was. And so this historian Wu was that way as well. Lin Zhong Wei Wei Seng, when he was about to die, he said he was a monk. 有高僧来度, and that there was going to be a noble monk who was going to take him across. All right, so I read this and I was like, oh, we don't know the whole story. What's behind this? Pretty interesting. This historian Wu knows that, is he talking about in this life? No, past life. He's seeing his past lives. Furthermore, he is counting on there being someone coming at the end of his life to help him across, a gaoseng, a lofty, noble, special monk. How does he know these things, one might ask, right? Before his death, he revealed, there's a typo, that he had been a member of the Sangha in a previous life, typo, to get rid of that period, and that an eminent monk would arrive to take him across. Oh, there's more here than meets the eye. This is interesting. 念经施时满来复，何意观身愿归途？肯留腾越木原籍，踊跃乐捐具款书. Many people came to recite sutras and offer food. The entire town, officials and gentry, wished to become refuge disciples. They entreated him to stay in Teng Yue with urgent priorities. Then, overjoyed, they happily pledged substantial contributions. So clearly, there's more to the story than there was room to print. Okay? What is this all about? We don't, from Shifu's 4-line verse, he is carrying the story forward. He's not simply putting in verse form the events of the prose. He's carrying the story forward, which means we need to go find out more. So let's do that right now. Now, before I launch into the Nianpu, as I was researching this, I had a vision, an image came to my mind of something that motivated me as a younger monk towards the, you could say, the life that I have now, my job, so to speak, that I have now, which is a large part of my personal cultivation as a monk, is telling stories, sacred stories of pilgrims, as it turns out currently, but opening sutras, opening biographies of noble cultivators of the past, and putting those stories into the air in English and Chinese as I can, and also drawing to this activity those who want to study these stories in Vietnamese and go deeper in Chinese. This is a job. It's a service, you could say. And the image that I had is, at one point, I had been moving through my pilgrimage, 3 steps and 1 bow, slowly up the California coast, a mile a day on foot, and living outdoors, never going under a roof for all those years, and being silent at the same time. And I remember seeing a Chinese storybook go through. Maybe it was at somebody had made an offering, or it was at a temple in Asia where we traveled. The storybook was illustrated, nicely illustrated in color, and very kindly. It was straight ahead, not a manga, but sort of like a manga in it was Chinese, not Japanese, and the illustrations were very wholesome and tame. And the story that was being told contained in it a narrator. So the story in the storybook began with a storyteller who gathered together the village, the community. It didn't specify where, but it could be pretty much anywhere in a small town. And he, the storyteller, was obviously a person of, someone in the town who fulfilled the role of not quite shaman. It wasn't using herbs or magic to heal the way a shaman could, or calling in spiritual powers through magical means. It wasn't that level. But he was a teacher, and more like a bard, more like a griot, if people know the word, Griot, meaning someone who holds the lore, the stories of the origin and the flourishing and the crises and the disasters, and then the returning of a group of people, a tribe, a race, a culture. And the storyteller gathered everybody together at the right time, and they all came, and the elders came, and the kids came, and the parents would come as they finished up the day's work. And his job was to tell stories and to gather everyone together, and in the telling of the stories, keep alive the tradition of goodness, the tradition of virtue, the tradition of kindness and strength and courage in the face of difficulty and challenge. And I remember reading that book and thinking, what a good job. What a wholesome use of your short years on the planet to be the keeper of the story, the keeper of the lore. And that, it stuck with me. Tonight's section of the Nianpu reminded me of that vision that I had back as a younger monk. And let me share with you now the Nianpu with these stories. Here we start. This is what Shifu saw and drew from. Wang Changtong Mu Hua. So I went to Tangchong to receive offerings, to fundraise. I went fundraising. I went to the Hunan Province Association, and this is the same language that Shifu used. Please, the mourners came and said, please recite for us. I said, I'm not a sutra reciting monk. They said, but it's for one of your monks. And I said, I didn't hear that there were any monks here who had passed away in particular, no monks in general, and particularly nobody who passed away. Okay, so here we go into a denser section. So I'm going to read you the English first, so you know the story, and then come back and go through the Chinese, okay? So I stayed at the Hunan Assembly. I hadn't packed, morning clothes, came, recite sutras. I'm not a funeral service monk. We're asking you, a monk, we're asking you to recite them for a monk is a better, we're asking you to recite them for a monk. I said, I didn't hear that there were monks in this area. The head steward of the assembly hall said, Master, it's a coincidence that you've come to recite these sutras, even though he hasn't agreed. These people are descendants of imperial scholar Wu, and in his lifetime, he cultivated with great sincerity. He was known as a shan ren, a good man, a righteous person, for many decades. He recently passed away at 80 years old. His descendants number in the dozens. He had lots of kids and grandkids, some of whom earned degrees as Xiao Lian, who were both filial and incorrupt. These are two of the eightfold classic virtues. So these are virtuous, good people. Many more were scholars. So in Chinese tradition, this is success. So in other words, these were good, this is a good family. Just before passing, imperial scholar Wu said he was a monk in a past life. He left a will saying that he should be buried in a monk's robe. He told everybody, do not cry, do not kill animals as sacrifice, do not invite non-Buddhists to come and chant. Particularly spiritualists or Taoists are going to wail and call in ghosts to protect you, etc., etc. So in his will, he was very strict in saying, I want a Buddhist funeral where nobody cries, nobody kills animals for the blood that's supposed to appease the ghosts or something. This is a custom that people have. He said, furthermore, a high, noble monk would come to perform the service. He passed away with his legs crossed in meditation, and for a day after he died, his face looked as if he were alive. And the man from the Hunan Association says, you're here. We think you're the one that he predicted. Oh, I see. Look at these details. This really fills in the the color in the black and white sketch, doesn't it? So let's look at the Chinese for that so far. 会馆守世人为之事业，大事要去念经，神生巧合，今来者这些子孙呢，是五太师的僧尊，太师生平修持神谨，数十年间皆成无老太爷为善人，今寿80余，80多岁。儿孙数十人，有曾孙什么的，因孝练科者数人，就是社会的栋梁，修士更多，学者更多，所以呢，这个家庭非常成功。日前去世时，他自己说：“我曾经前生就是出家人，亦属于生意间，不许哭泣，不可以，不准大家在那儿哭，就说不许杀生，不属杀那个叫生动，就是动物的意思。不许请食物诵经，不能请这些外道来为你做服啊什么的，烧什么东西，用齐饭什么的，不允许，不可以的。而为将有高僧来为之超度，嘿，是不是徐老啊？就说攀藤坐拖，他就盘腿就走了，往生了。近日面目如生，已经1天或者多几天了，就他的脸色都不变了。所以这个那个吴老先生真的有功夫了啊！今日时来得非法缘，他说。Okay, so pretty special conditions here. What else? I agreed. Master Empty Cloud says, okay, all right. I'm convinced this is special circumstance. I will bend my rules. I went to his home. I recited sutras and offering food for the hungry ghosts for 7 days. Now, look at this. Not only is he going to do one round, he's going to do the full qi tian. And the hungry ghosts, this is the Mengshan Shi. It's a special ceremony where you can, it's very ornate, and you speak directly to beings that are not embodied. You make offerings to ghosts and feed them. It's a very compassionate, and you don't do it every day. You do it with special circumstances, but this qualifies. Officials, scholars, and the common people from the whole city came to rejoice. More than 1,000 asked to take refuge. The local officials and the gentry urged me to stay in Tangchong. I said, thank you, no, thank you. I came here to raise funds for rebuilding Jizushan. I can't stay here. They were joyful, and they donated generously. Oh, now Shifu's verse makes sense. Xu Zhi, 我答应了，我就去了。到其家诵经，放诗使7日。不但一次，不但1天，而且7天，在那梦山施食，就直接把食物就给鬼神一意观身是世俗，闲来随喜。So I wanted to. This is saying that all these people from the village came, and notice that he was originally saying no to the invitation to come and recite a sutra for money, but because he heard of the special circumstances, he relented, and look at what happened. Now he's connected to 1,000 people in the village. 愿皈依者有千余人. 1,000 people took refuge. 观身遗留我住成通. And they said, would you please stay? We really like you. We need monks. And he said, 我为修吉祖山. I'm here to rebuild Jizushan, your famous mountain not far away where Maitreya Bodhisattva is. That's the big fish here. I came to receive offerings, so I can't stay in your town as much as I'd like to. 众为皆欢喜. Everybody was really happy at that. 踊跃乐捐款聚款. And they really opened their purses to help me rebuild the monastery, 博雨寺 up on Jizushan. Okay. I then returned to the mountain, stocked provisions, built quarters, established rules, sat meditation sessions, lectured on sutras, revived the precepts, and transmitted the monastic code. That year, more than 700 members of the Fourfold Assembly asked to receive the precepts. From then on, the various temples on the mountain began to reform. Monks wore robes, ate vegetarian food, joined the morning and evening services, and accepted visiting practitioners, as he was refused. Master Empty Cloud changed the climate, changed the culture by his vows. Look at that. And he accomplished, this is someone with blessings. When he, out of nothing, in a situation where the monks have forgotten how to cultivate the way, he sees what's wrong and goes out to change the wind. So they talk about Tiandi, and heaven, earth, and humanity all need to do their part. Here's a case where humanity turned around from the wrong road and came back to the broad highway. And the result was people followed. So incredible to be, we're going to need people like this in the future to bring us back to the right road. So stories, look at these wonderful stories. And what a difference one life can make. Okay, now that was what Shifu worked with. Now we have Fuji. Okay, while he was there for 7 days in Tangchong and then went back out to rebuild the monastery that was in ruins and created this culture of real cultivation, he heard stories of the people who came. Now, check this one out. 陈太守兰清，原籍浙江绍兴，生长昆明，皈依昆明西山雁齐和尚，至心念佛，常持金刚经，共化兰草螃蟹，忍争宝之。其早年回迹应世时，初到杭州，愿入故里。虎翼前生孙其虎，玛瑙寺僧。就上对有欲言寺中景况，及咒住疗房内置陈设，乃至庭院中花木等，历历如画，历历如僧，群衣齐旦。Don't know how to read that character. 至道寺国如所云。又言其前生为玛瑙寺旁木鱼补拿贵夫，曾供养袈裟衣领，至戒金元人 Let's see here. 人问异信而异之，其生平福报深厚，子孙数十人。随信佛念佛而无在培奥之意，光绪30年，我于住昆明复兴寺，常向往来，蜀境之福生也。经云富贵学道难，惜哉。Okay, sorry for the broken Chinese. Here's the story. Prefect Chen, whose name was Lanqing, came from Shaoxing in Zhejiang, but he grew up in Kunming, out in the west. He took refuge with the elder Yansi of Xishan in Kunming. He was sincerely devoted to reciting the Buddha's name. He regularly recited the Diamond Sutra. He was skilled at painting orchids, grasses, and crabs, which people eagerly treasured. So here's a government official, Prefect Chen Lanqing. Came from Shaoxing in Zhejiang in the east, but he moved out to the west, to Kunming, took refuge as a layman with a monk named Yansi, and he was a cultivator. He recited the Buddha's name, the Diamond Sutra, and he was a painter, and people loved his paintings. In his youth, when he returned to his native place to take the imperial examination back in Zhejiang, he arrived in Hangzhou. He felt as though he had returned home. He suddenly recalled that in a past life he had been a monk at Manao Monastery on West Lake in Hangzhou. He even foretold the layout of the temple and the furnishings inside the room he had lived in, down to the flowers and trees in the courtyard, all described in vivid detail as if he had painted them. This is physically, he's not there. He's reading it from the inside of his mind. Many doubted him and teased him, but accompanying him to the temple, they saw that everything there was exactly as he had said. He said his wife, who was back in Kunming, had, in a former life, been the wife of the manager of a wooden fish shop, Mu Yu, beside Manao Si, and had offered a monk's robe in support of the temple, and that was the karmic bond that led to their present relationship, where they became husband and wife. He's reading this entirely from his inspiration of past lives. People who heard this were even more amazed and convinced. Throughout his life, he enjoyed great blessings. He had dozens of descendants. Although he believed in and recited the Buddha's name, he had no intention of renouncing the household life again. So, in 1904, I was staying at Fuxing Monastery in Kunming. We were in frequent contact. I often admonished him, but he remained unresponsive. As the sutra says, it's hard to study the way amid wealth and honor. How sad. This is just a little story, a little biography appended to Master Empty Cloud's autobiography. So, now, what's sad is he could have left home. He had been a monk before, but now the current circumstances didn't permit him. And he came close, and if he had followed Master Empty Cloud, can you imagine what he could have accomplished? But the necessary conditions were not there, and so back onto the turning wheel he went. How about that? What an amazing story, right? Real people described from the point of view with the standards of a monk's view. Master Empty Cloud telling these stories. So interesting. So back to this is our 75th lecture tonight in our series, and it's a story of remarkable success based on his vows, Master Empty Cloud's vows, to rebuild not only the monastery, but also the culture of cultivation, to bring people who had forgotten their vows, who had forgotten their practices, and maybe never knew them. Maybe they just left home to get rich and to get comfortable. But seeing the virtue of this remarkable teacher, they're inspired to find their way back to the Dharma. What a hero he is, truly. Virtue, they say, is the only power that can cut without harming. That's the power of virtue. And he cuts through the false to reveal the truth inside. So, reciting sutras and bestowing food on a monk. Of course, the story hinges upon two people, both of them lay people, remembering their past lives. That's the catalyst for this remarkable episode in two different cases. So, what about that? Anybody in the audience have a dream, have a vision on maybe you're on a mountaintop, maybe you're recovering from an illness, maybe you step into a temple or just before dawn and you're still slightly asleep, slightly awake, and you get this uncanny memory of something that can only have come from your own experience because there's nothing you read, nothing you heard, and you saw that you had this life in the past. So interesting. So Master Empty Cloud going out to Yunnan where Buddhism had decayed, all it takes is him to show up and things start to change. What a remarkable man. All right. That's why we study these stories. So glad you could all join me tonight. Storyteller's Treasure House. Boy, oh boy. I would like to recite Medicine Buddha's mantra. We have hard times ahead, and we're going to need some healing to put things back together after the truth is revealed of what's going on. So please make a wish how you would like to dedicate your merit. Om Namo Bhagavate Vaidurya Prabharajaya Tathagata Arahate Samyak Sambuddhaya Tathagata Om Vaisaju 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 Samukate Swaha Om Namo Bhagavate Vaisajaguru Vaidurya Prabharajaya Tathagataya Arahate Samyak Sambuddhaya Tathagata Vaisaju, Vaisaju, Vaisajya Samukate Swaha Om Namo Bhagavate Vaisajaguru Vaidurya Prabharajaya Tathagataya Arahate Samyak Sambuddhaya Bhagavata Om. Last chance. Vaisaji, Vaisaji, Vaisajya Samukate Swaha Now, before we're done, we've got an opportunity to bow to Guanyin Bodhisattva here. First bow. Second bow. Third bow. Bow in respect to the Venerable Master. Alrighty, that's going to do it for us for this week. We'll see you all next week for another. I'm going to tell you, next week's story is unbelievably powerful. So make sure you're here. Tell your friends to come listen to these incredible stories. Next week is going to be a jaw dropper. Amitofo, everybody. Bye now. See you next week.